Hi, this is gonna be a very random video from me. I don't normally do tags. I've only done one tag, which is the mid-year book freakout tag, but I would like to wish, belated though it may be, a very, very happy birthday to BookTube's Charles Heathcote. Even though I've been posting BookTube videos for over a year now, I still feel like a BookTube noob, and I don't know who the big booktubers are, and I've only recently, in the past few months or so, been following Charlie Heathcote's channel when I believe it was something with an Agatha Christie book. We were talking about At Bertram's Hotel, and I wish more people talked about Agatha Christie. But ever since, we've been chatting here and there on Instagram and in the YouTube comments, and it's been a joy of a budding friendship, I would say. And it was his birthday, like almost a week now. And regardless, I would very much love to participate in the hashtag Charlie birthday book tag, because I don't know the man personally, obviously. I live in Southern California, he lives in the depths of England, but over the course of these past couple months of watching his videos, he's so thoughtful, he reads everything, and he writes his own books, and he's just turned 30. So I find this all very impressive and would like to do my part in participating in wishing him a very happy belated birthday. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get into the questions. And I just found the tag questions by Charlie Brooke, another booktuber who I'm starting to get into. And I just found all of these questions to be very fun to respond to. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number 1, Charlie is the name of the game. Which is your favorite book by Charles or Charlie, or featuring a Charles or a Charlie? I just finished reading Doris by Charles Heathcote, and as I said, watching Charlie's videos where he talks about all the various books that he's read, I can't help imagining him to be an incredibly thoughtful, a very smart, conscientious, like a very honest and genuine person. And if you're a smart guy, what do you write about? What does Charles Heathcote choose to write? He chose to write about Doris, which is a absolutely charming tale following a septuagenarian couple named Harold and Doris Copeland, who live in a small village in England on Shakespeare Avenue. And it just follows the exploits of a very lively, on the conservative side, vigorous lady named Doris, who her husband Harold exasperatingly but supportively follows. There are gardens, there are pubs, there's tea, there's pints, there's women's institute shenanigans, there are all of the wonderful highs and lows that an average middle class couple in their 70s could possibly live. And it was a fun ride and a slightly cringy glimpse into my future. Not that I'm conservative leaning. I mean, I do live in Orange County, so perhaps it's only a matter of time before I become one. But in general, people's lives are quite similar with shared experiences. And I'm always wondering what my future is going to look like, what my old age is going to look like. And I try to come across BookTube as very calming and positive and supportive of others. But when you ask my husband, he would tell you that I could be that girl sometimes. So as much trouble as our Doris gets into, nevertheless, it is indisputable that she is a very lovable character, and we love our Doris. We love our Harold. We love our Angela. We love the good people of Partridge Mews, and this was such a fun read. And I can't wait to get into the rest of the books, Indisputably Doris and Doris Ahoy. And then I believe that he just recently came out with a murder mystery called An Heir to Murder, so add to cart. I'm so hot. It is, of course, I'm filming this during a heat wave, which I believe it is currently hotter in England than it is here in Southern California, which I thought never happens, but this is where we are in the world, I guess. Number 2, Doris, a book you loved featuring a protagonist over 50. I would say that a favorite character trope of mine are older women, whether their actual age number is high or their status in society deems them as old. And I read this, The Hearing Trumpet by Leonora Carrington, either last year or 2 years ago. and I still am thinking about it because it was delightful. It was such a fun ride. How can you not? It's about a nursing home filled with a group of women in their 80s plus, with magical realism, with like a free-flowing, ethereal imagination, with one of my favorite characters that I still think about because I kind of wish that she or somebody like her is in my real life. BFF Carmela, who in every conversation between her and the protagonist, there's always like a problem, and then they're trying to figure out their way out of that problem, and then all of Carmela's solutions is something ridiculous and hilarious, and I just wish that I had somebody like that in my own life. One of the details that I still think about is that our main character Marion is saving up cat hair so that she can knit herself a sweater out of it. Number 3, An Heir to Murder, a favorite crime or mystery book. As I said, I first found Charles Heathcote via the wonderful works of Agatha Christie, and we have a mutual favorite. I think it's his favorite. It's definitely in my top 5 at Bertram's Hotel. My favorite Agatha Christie novel has to be And Then There Were None. It's a classic. I would say most Agatha Christie fans' favorite. Agatha Christie tends to really shine in writing character dynamics, and especially for a budding romance. But the other thing that she can do very well is build suspense. There are 10 people on an island who were brought under false pretenses. They've all been accused of committing a horrible crime, and then one by one, she ticks off each character until there are none. This is my tattered 1991 copy from Berkeley Mysteries. I must have read this countless times. I love this story. It's pretty fast. I bet you could finish this in a couple sittings, if not one. There was a 2015 adaptation with like an amazing cast. Aidan Turner, he was so hot in it. That I felt was really done. Probably my favorite Agatha Christie adaptation ever made. And I encourage you to both read and watch And Then There Were None. So good. Number 4, Chocolat, a book by one of your favorite authors. Obviously, Agatha Christie is one of my favorite authors, but I will shut up about her now. And a new and current favorite has to be Elena Ferrante. And I would bring up my Neapolitan quartet, but they're just so big. And I will talk about my second favorite, which is The Days of Abandonment. This is also a very slim one, very quick to read, but like emotionally intense. And from the very first sentence, Ferrante's concise and direct writing just immediately pulls you into the story. You're emotionally invested. You're gonna have opinions about this. And the saddest, and I guess that makes it the most fun aspect of this, is that this is a tale as old as time. It is a tale about a woman whose husband cheated on her and left her for a younger woman, leaves her and her kids, and she has to deal with that. I think it's set during like the 80s in Italy, where, you know, if you're a woman and your husband leaves you for someone else, it's like automatically your fault. And you've now become a single woman with no income. Because of course, as a wife and mother, you're supposed to be a stay-at-home mom if you're doing it correctly. And what happens when you're abandoned? Well, you're shit out of luck. You have to figure it out right quick. And this is the story of a woman who's figuring all that out. Bad things happen, but all of them are very normal bad things. But that does not make it any less intense. I think of Elena Ferrante's writing and her stories and her narrative much like the Before trilogy, where it's nothing but real life. There's no action sequences, there's no car crashes, there's no superheroes. It's real people living real lives, and that is all of the drama that is required. I love this book. Every time I read it, I get so angry. I highly recommend. Please join me in my anger. Number 5, reading is fundamental. A book you think everyone should read. I read How the Word Is Passed I read How the Word Is Passed, A Reckoning with the History of Slavery Across America by Clint Smith last July. And there have been quite a few, like, white fragility, critical race theory, let's be woke type of books out since over the past several years. And, you know, please read all of them, whichever ones that you want. But I would encourage everyone to add this into their woke reading list, because the unique aspect of this is that it really gets the notion out of your head that slavery, incredibly horrible racism was so long ago. The go-to excuse has always been, for quite a while now, racism is not my fault. It has nothing to do with me. I'm not a racist. Why should I be blamed? And Clint Smith argues, well, actually, it wasn't that long ago. Your parents were probably racists to my parents. Your grandparents were most definitely racist towards my grandparents. Both sets of our families are probably still alive. And if they're not, it hasn't been that long since they've passed, and guaranteed you've probably learned something from them and have taken away several of their beliefs and personal doctrines. And just on a reading experience level, this was very entertaining. It was very enjoyable. It was almost like a tour of racism where he travels to several plantations, prisons, New York City, showing how deeply entrenched, how deeply woven into the fabric of our social structures, into our society and our systems, racism is steeped in. How if you could claim that your family's from the North, not the South, therefore your grandparents were probably abolitionists even. No, racism has touched everything. Racism has polluted everything. Racism continues to touch and pollute everything. This book has won a couple awards since it came out, most deservedly so, and I hope that people continue to read this going forward so that hopefully we can start going forward and stop going backwards. Number 6, The Tardis, a book you wish you could go back in time and tell yourself to stay away from. As I said from the get-go, I try to be very positive and supportive here on my channel, and I know that in my July wrap-up video I'm about to trash something a lot, but in the meantime, as my response for this query, I will pull up my Paula Deen and Friends Living It Up Southern Style cookbook from 2005 that I got signed by the author and her husband. Are they still married? Michael. I cooked from this a lot. The 2000s was an incredibly weird, strange time with like a lot of misogyny, as we're coming to realize now. When I think of the 2000s personally, I think of a lot of hours spent watching the Food Network at its cultural zenith, in my humble opinion. I watched a lot of Paula Deen, Giada De Laurentiis, and the one and only Ina Garten. But back then, I loved Paula Deen. I thought that she was so homey, and that whole myth of Southern hospitality and all of that just drew me in, and watching her shows was like, you know, watching a fantasy, watching a fantasy show, like a sci-fi show. Because I did not grow up eating grits, fried chicken, cooked with honey. I learned what pimiento was for the first time. So I did cook a lot from this book. I take care of my stuff in general, so it's not that tattered and very well kept, but I used the crap out of this book and ultimately gained a few pounds from it, I'm sure. If I could go back in time and tell myself to stay away from something, anything, I guess it would be, you know what, girl, you didn't need Paula Deen. You could have stuck with just Ina. It would have been fine. Number 7, Victoria Wood, a book that made you laugh. I said a few times before in my videos that I feel at heart like an old British lady. I am a Miss Marple at heart. My alter ego, I guess you could say, is Bridget Jones. This is my old tattered copy from 2001. When I was in high school, all my friends started to drive, and I would ask one of them to drive me to the local bookstore so I can hang out there and wait until my parents would come home from work. And I would just browse all afternoon. It was either Borders or Barnes & Noble, but I read this copy of Bridget Jones one afternoon, and then my mom came to pick me up, and I loved it so much. I was getting stares and looks from people, from the store employees, by my heinous cackling. And then my mom came to pick me up, and I was like, Mom, you have to buy me this book. I have made a scene, and I love this. I need to take this home and finish this tonight. You know, like, that's what one does when one is a freshman in high school at the tender age of 13, 14. You read about a slightly overweight woman in her 30s trying to find love and good life in London. And I didn't even know at the time, like, I was a very dumb child, and I had even read Pride and Prejudice either before or around the same time, and I didn't even like, connect it in my stupid head that it's the same story, but I love this book. I still cackle every time I read it. I love the movie adaptation. It is a wonderful Pride and Prejudice adaptation, and if you haven't read this yet, I highly encourage you to do so. It is so entertaining. It is the best cheap thrill that you're gonna get in a pop culture novel. Oh, it's so hot. Number 8, So Sally, a book featuring your favorite pet or animal. So on my channel, and just in life, I try to be as eclectic as possible because I think of books as food. And with food, you don't want to eat the same thing over and over. You want to have a lovely variety. You need to mix it up. Hot Banana Fudge by Takano is one of my most precious art books in my art book collection. I have a fine arts degree. I graduated in painting, but basically all of my paintings were ripoffs of Takano's work. And Hot Banana Fudge is a beautiful book of her artwork that came out in 2001, but with writings from her that are written in Japanese that unfortunately don't have translations in them. However, it's just as a book, as a visual piece, it is such a delight to flip through, to behold, and sci-fi and nature are huge sources of inspiration and narrative in her work. They're so mystical. They're wonderfully inventive. I just love her sketches and drawings as much, if not more, than her full paintings. I love that these pages are made up of different colors and papers. It is a beautiful book. Even if I can't read her Japanese, because it's her actual writing, it feels so satisfying. Number 9. Okay, here's my best Italian from my one semester of an Italian course in college. Un libro che amo ancora. Either a favorite translated book or a translated book you want to read. A while ago, I made a very ambitious Instagram post where I stated that I was going to go through these huge chunkers this year. And I mean, don't ask me how my War and Peace progress is going. Just don't. But one of the books is Minae Mizumura's A True Novel, which I'm not afraid of the size. Like, I think so far I've read like 10 or 11 books, and even at 100 pages each, that's over 1,000 pages. And they're not, they were like 100, or they're like 200, 300 pages, whatever. So it's not about the pages. But A True Novel is highly recommended by Alex from What Page Are You On, Claire from Claire Eats Books, and they rave about A True Novel. I believe it has something to do with Emily Bronte, like adapting Wuthering Heights or something. I don't know. I'm just planning to go into this blind, but it's a chunker. I'll do it. I can't wait. Number 10, Age UK, a charity shop book bargain you adored. In 2019, I went to New York City. I walked all over Manhattan and I walked because I wanted to go into every single bookstore that I would pass on the street. And every trip that I go on, I have like a trip goal. So for my Manhattan trip, I had a goal to find any Mary Oliver book that I could find in one of these used bookshops that you find like every block or every other block. The only Mary Oliver that I found was New and Selected Poems Volume 2 from Codex Books, which was a lovely, lovely little store. And I'm currently reading this book right now because, alas, I came home from that trip, something happened, and then I just forgot about getting to actually reading this. And why Mary Oliver? Why not Mary Oliver? She is such a calming, grounding, soothing writer, and the perfect thing to read to recalibrate yourself, to get over whatever stresses you have. You could read a Mary Oliver book of poetry in one sitting, and then you could just pick up a Mary Oliver book, whichever one, and just keep going back to one over and over, depending on where you are in life. And this is beautiful. I've been in this world just long enough to learn, not always easily, to love my neighbors and to allow them every possibility. You're breathing patiently. It is a beautiful sound. It is your life, which is so close to my own that I would not know where to drop the knife of separation. So in closing, I believe that these days, or maybe for a while now, it's been a thing to kind of have a third life crisis, like general feelings of a little bit of hopelessness because you feel like you might not be where you would be at this age. And I believe Charlie has spoken about this, where his mother had all of her children by the age of 30, things like that. And I'm not saying that I have all the answers at all. I am here to say that if anyone does tell you that they have the answers, run. But what I try to achieve with this channel, what I try to put out into the world, is a supportive, healing, calming energy. And I just wish to tell Charlie and everyone else out there, hang in there. It gets better. And unfortunately, if it doesn't get better, if anything, you have friends, you have family, you have people around you to help you through it. And with that, thank you for watching me sweat all through this video and hearing me ramble about books. As always, thank you so much for watching. Happy birthday, Charlie. Bye.